Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Let's talk about all the horror movies I've watched recently. So I kicked off the month with a movie I never thought I'd watch because I didn't really have any interest in it. I didn't see the first one, but there was so much hype and praise to this movie that I decided to check it out when it popped up on Tubi for free, and that is Terrifier 2. This one takes place after the events of the first one, obviously, and it centers on Art the Clown, who is mysteriously resurrected, and this time around he sets his eyes on a young girl and her little brother on Halloween night. What I loved most about this movie is the main character, Sienna. She is such a badass, and I love watching her growth throughout the movie. We watch as she grows from this almost uncertain character who is struggling from the loss of her father, and she is dealing with a lot, and over the course of the film she really comes into her own. She becomes more confident and she battles Art in the most epic way. I think that the blood and gore in this is so insanely over the top. I found it to be silly. It's not something that I can take seriously, but I know that some people may find it a little difficult to watch. There is a particular scene that takes place in a bedroom where a young girl is brutalized for a good amount of time, but it didn't bother me. I was more impressed at the special effects because the director did it all. I'm so impressed that this movie was made with such little money because it doesn't look it. It was fun. It was very long, but I enjoyed it. I didn't find myself checking the clock to see how long was left. It could have been a little shorter, but overall I thought it was a really good time. Now, do I need to watch part 1? I don't know, because I felt like I was up to speed with Terrifier 2. I don't think I need to watch part 1. I've heard part 1 is a lot meaner, so let me know if I should watch it. I probably should. Then I watched Unfriended Dark Web. This is from 2018 and I really enjoyed this one. I didn't like the first one. It could have just been my mood at the time. I just was not into it and I felt like it was silly and dumb. However, this one, it's focused on a group of new people and they're older. So they're not dumb teenagers doing dumb teenage things. Yes, they're still doing dumb things, but they're a little older, so they're a little bit easier to stomach and find relatable. So it centers on this young guy who picks up a computer from an internet cafe, and he soon discovers that he has stolen the wrong laptop because this laptop belonged to some really dark people who did some messed up things for money. And he uncovers this whole society of people on the dark web who are essentially paying to have girls kidnapped and murdered. And he and his friends get pulled into this and it's insane. It's insane, it's super dark, it's super bleak, and it just feels like a punch in the gut. It's all set on the computer. It's one of those Screen Life films, and I was like on the edge of my seat at times. I found it to be really thrilling, really exciting, and mysterious and scary. The idea that there are people out there like this who pay to have bad things done to certain groups of people, and that's how they communicate through the dark web, it's absolutely terrifying, and I feel like this one had a little bit more of a sense of reality in comparison to the first one, which focuses on a haunting that is taking place through the internet. So I really enjoyed this one. I know it won't be for everybody because it's really mean and dark and it will not make you feel good. There are no happy situations in this movie at all, and once it starts it does not let up. Then I checked out another movie on Tubi called All Eyes. This is about a podcaster who kind of hosts one of those late night cryptic paranormal radio shows where people call in and he essentially investigates their claims of hauntings and other strange stuff. And he is in hot water because one of these people who he has put on his show ends up killing himself and somebody else, and he gets his show canceled. But soon after, he receives a letter from this guy who says he has evidence of a monster living outside his home and he wants this guy to come and investigate it. So he takes this guy up on his offer so he can revitalize his career, and he heads out to the woods in the middle of nowhere to basically stay with this strange guy and record what happens. I thought it was an interesting concept. I loved the setup. I thought the cast was good, but it kind of just lingers on a little bit too long and it takes a while to get to where it's going. And it does take this huge leap in story and become something a little bit different, and I didn't like the direction it took. I wanted it to be straight up monster movie. Podcaster finds this monster and they publicize what their findings are. But it takes a different direction that I didn't like, and I don't know if I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty neat to see that this was able to be accomplished with so little money. We love supporting indie filmmakers, and it's on Tubi if you want to check it out, because I do think it's interesting. It just overall did not work for me. Then I watched a found footage horror movie on Tubi called Evil Things. This is from 2009, and it centers on a group of college friends who were heading out into the Catskills to celebrate a friend's birthday. On their way there, they're driving down the road. It's snowing. The roads are kind of hectic and a little bit scary, and then they notice this van behind them that kind of starts messing with them along their drive, and they notice that he keeps popping up in different locations that they stop. Like they stop at a gas station, and then they stop at a diner, and he's following them. And that kind of progresses throughout the film, where they're just trying to have this good time in the middle of the wilderness, and this person will not let them go. I really enjoyed this one. It's very low budget. Not a ton happens, but that whole buildup of this van following them in the first like half an hour of the movie, I think is so well done. The tension in that, and the dread, and just this terrifying claustrophobic feeling of being in a car in the middle of the road in the middle of a snowstorm and not really being familiar with your surroundings and having this strange person following you. It's absolutely terrifying. There's a sense of realism in the beginning of the film where they're being stalked essentially by this person they can't see and they don't know. I just really enjoyed it. I think the end, there's lots of screaming, so people might not like that, but I do think that the journey was really, really fun to watch, really creepy, really terrifying, and it's more of a slow burn, and I really like found footage horror like this. So if you're into that sort of thing, check it out. It's on Tubi. And I rewatched an OG found footage horror called The Last Broadcast. So this movie originally came out in 1998. It was a precursor to The Blair Witch. It's said to be the inspiration behind Blair Witch. I really like this one. I found that when I initially saw this one years ago, I didn't like it as much, but now with time, I can appreciate it. It's just a sense of nostalgia when watching it, and I really loved it this time around. This is about a public access TV show called Fact or Faked, where a group of investigators set out into the New Jersey woods in order to find the Jersey Devil, and they get murdered. And one of them is charged with the crime, and this person, this documentary filmmaker, is basically rehashing what happened and putting a new light on it and saying, was this person really responsible or was it something else? It's clearly very low budget. It's a little rough around the edges, and the performances are not incredible, but it just feels so real. And watching it now in 2023, I just have such a fondness for that old 1998 look and just the dial-up computer sounds. It just brought me back to that time. And I love that it's like a time capsule. And I think that they created some really creepy stuff with like flashes of images of the crime scene, and it felt like an actual documentary to me where these real people are being interviewed about the crime, and just watching the mystery unfold slowly over the course of the film. I will say the biggest issue with this movie is its ending, because it kind of switches out of the found footage element. What happens in the end I do not like. I think a lot of people dislike the ending. It just feels like they tried to make a shocking ending for the sake of being shocking. And it is disturbing. It's disturbing and shocking, but it doesn't really make sense. But overall, I love the journey. I love the build-up, and I think it's a perfect entry to found footage, and I love that it inspired so much. It's one of the first, and I just have a fondness for it now. So this is on Shudder. I think it might be on Tubi. Let me know if you're a fan of this one. I think if you didn't like it before, maybe you should give it another chance and revisit it. Watch it at night when it's dark. Then I watched another movie on Shudder called The Influencer. This is a story about a young influencer who is on a solo trip in Thailand, and she meets a mysterious, beautiful stranger who kind of lets her loosen up a bit and tries to get her to have some fun, because she's just so focused on capturing her content for social that she isn't really living in the moment. So she meets this girl, and this girl helps bring her out of the moment, brings her into the moment, and things go horribly wrong. The story takes an unexpected turn and it's really fun to watch. It's really thrilling. The lead actress in this is so good. She is so hypnotizing and fun to watch. She's so unique and I feel like she plays this character very well. It feels like a modern take on Single White Female meets The Talented Mr. Ripley, and I think it's a lot of fun. Then I revisited The Rage Carrie 2 from 1999. So this is set decades after the original Carrie film, and it focuses on a young girl named Rachel. She's this school outcast and she's got these abilities like Carrie, and over the course of the movie you figure out why. And her abilities amp up after the unexpected death of her best friend, and Rachel is pretty sure that the school's jocks might have something to do with it. She's hesitant and she wants to figure out what happened, but in the middle of this, against her better judgment, she ends up falling in love with one of them. And his friends are not taking it very well, so they decide they're gonna bully her. And it's really scary what they do to her. It's really traumatic and just intense, and I find that what they do to her in the end of the film is probably, in my opinion, worse than getting pig's blood dumped on you, because it's just so vile and so intimate and it's just violating, and it's so hard to watch her go through this, but it's so satisfying watching her unleash her fury on them as Carrie would. And I think this one is such an overlooked, underrated horror movie, and had it not been a sequel to Carrie, I think it would have been much better received. I think it's a really well done 90s teen horror that a lot of people should revisit, because a lot of the messages and themes in this movie are still relevant today. Then I ended off the month with a classic horror thriller called Seven. So this is from director David Fincher. It stars Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman as two detectives who are investigating a brutal series of murders that are based around the Seven Deadly Sins. This movie is so dark, it's so bleak, and the kills and death scenes are just horrific. I love that the killer uses the Seven Deadly Sins. I think it's so creative and unique, and the way that he fulfills each of these kills is just, it's so disturbing, and this movie never ceases to be disturbing no matter how many times you've watched it or how many years have gone on. I feel like it's a timeless thriller, and I just love it so much. And the last 20 minutes of this movie are so intense, so scary, and just, they make you really think, and it's awful what happens in the end of the movie, but Brad Pitt's performance, incredible. What's in the box? What's in the box? That scene is iconic, and I just think this movie is iconic. There you have it. Those are all the movies I've watched recently. Let me know what you've been watching recently and what you think of the movies I watched. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I will catch you next time. Bye.